What's going on, everyone? My name's Security Denied, and welcome back to the Average Gamer's Perspective on this Bungie blog post, the Dev Insights Renegades Weapon Tuning Preview. So here's the sandbox update that we were promised from last week's TWID, or I guess from 2 TWIDs ago for last week's TWID. So let's just dive right on in. Hello everyone, today we're going to kick things off with the first of 3 articles detailing changes coming to the game's sandbox in Renegades. Today we've got some general global updates to discuss, and then we'll dive into everything we're doing for weapons in terms of the ammo system, archetypes balance, exotic weapons, and perks. The next 2 Dev Insight articles on Renegades will cover armor changes and then ability updates. Cool, I'm excited to see what they've got for Renegades. Global updates. HUD buff priority update. Most of the character HUD buffs, the buffs that appear against the left side of the screen, have received a priority iteration. It is now much less likely that a player with lots of buffs will have an important buff hidden by a less important one. Get to the back of the line, Void Breach cooldown. Whoop, gone. Send him to the barn. Artifacts new gear bonus. The new gear bonus no longer scales with gear tier. The bonus weapon damage for new gear weapons is now 5%. Bonus incoming damage reduction for equipping new gear armor goes up to 10%, 2% per equipped piece. All exotics now count as new gear. Removed the featured exotic sections in collections as they are now redundant. Good, this is a great change. Specifically for the people who want to take lots of builds into newer content, but they are restricted for new gear only. And so I'm excited for this change. Stasis freeze. We have updated how frozen targets take increased or decreased damage from weapons based on their ammo type and fixed a handful of outliers that were doing less damage than intended. Increased Ariana's Vow and Leviathan's Breath bonus damage to frozen targets from 5% to 10%, matching other special and heavy weapons. Fixed an issue where Forerunner and micro missile pulse rifles and new Malpais did not deal any increased damage to frozen targets. Fighting Lion and Alethanim though primary I can't read. Fighting Lion and Alethanim, though primary ammo weapons, will still get the 10% damage bonus to frozen targets. About freaking time. Damn. Combat Flare socket. Updated Combat Flare to be recorded under weapon cosmetics, returning the shader to its left side. Sorry for breaking muscle memory. Thank you. I appreciate it. Disorient. All of the following now use a new universal disorient setup in the same way as we handle subclass verbs. This will ensure disorient effects are consistent and predictable across all gameplay atoms that use it, and opens us up to potentially do more with it in the future, which means they're definitely working on something right now and they needed to tune it. Overall, it will still function as expected. Combatants cover their eyes and won't shoot back, while players' screens will turn bright while their HUD is removed. Some VFX as the victim in PvP environments might appear slightly different on a case-by-case basis. However, these differences should be minor. Alright, Shield Disorient, Flash Counter, Bewildering Burst, Photo Inhibition, Disorienting Grenades, Concussion Grenades, Concussive Rounds, Reactive Shock, Gemini Jester. Other notes, or additional notes. Shield Disorient and Photo Inhibition no longer have a damage impulse. This damage impulse did roughly 1 damage and was using content from other gameplay atoms. To avoid potential issues, we have removed this. Good change. I bet they're like, this thing's gonna insta-kill things on accident. We don't want it to do any damage. Exceptions, Helm of Saint 14 will be exempt from this update. Leaving it as it will have no effect on its gameplay, but under the hood it won't be considered disorient in the same way as everything else listed here will be. We are planning on giving this exotic further attention in a future release. Touch of Malice's Darkness Bolt versus players is exempt from this update and will continue to be its own bespoke debuff with a unique screen effect. Against combatants, this will continue to arc blind as normal. Alright, fair enough. Ammo system. In PvE, we wanted to focus on 3 main things: giving support and objective players more ways to earn ammo that don't rely on getting kills directly, fixing some bugs with specific weapons that were making it harder to earn ammo, and increasing a handful of exotic weapons and weapon archetypes abilities by shifting their ammo economies. Alongside this, we also need to bring down a handful of performance outliers by a small amount. Alright, reintroduced ammo scout mods on the helmet, which will spawn an ammo brick for your allies whenever you fill your corresponding meter. The amount of ammo in the brick is dependent on the number of scout mods you have equipped. Ability assists will now generate a small amount of ammo meter progress. Granting buffs, radiant, overshield, etc. to allies will grant a small amount of ammo meter progress when they land final blows while buffed. Fixed an issue where glaive projectile kills were not getting correctly scaled by the ammo generation stat. Fixed an issue where machine gun and Lord of Wolves were getting less ammo than intended from scavenger mods. Increase the following exotic weapons ammo per brick amounts. Truth, Heir Apparent, the Colony, the Prospector, Darcy, Salvation's Grip. Increase the following weapon subfamilies ammo per brick amounts. Heavy burst slug shotguns, rapid fire shotguns. Cool. I definitely think that these, especially like heavy burst and rapid fire, they're definitely not getting used like at all. So hopefully getting a little bit more ammo as they use a lot more ammo will be better. Reduce the following weapon subfamilies ammo per enhanced brick amounts. Micro missile pulse rifles. Yeah, they were definitely getting a little too much ammo and were overused a lot. So I definitely think this change is going to help reduce their usage, because they're kind of meta right now. I personally haven't been using any rocket-assisted pulse rifles, just because I forgot about them, to be honest. I just have a setup, and I click the button, and it gives me the weapons, and that's what I use. We're reducing a few weapon perks ammo generation bonuses. These used to provide such large numerical bonuses because inventory stat values needed to pass certain thresholds to have an effect, but now that every point of ammo generation matters, their buffs are outsized compared to other options for investment. Air Trigger, reduced base trait ammo generation increase to 20 from 30. Reduced enhanced trait ammo generation increase to 30 from 40. Field Prep, reduced ammo base trait ammo generation increase to 20 from 30. Reduced enhanced trait ammo generation increase to 30 from 40. Envious Arsenal, reduced enhanced traits increased ammo generation from 10 to 10 from 20. In the Crucible, after the most recent changes to special ammo generation, we've seen special weapon usage rise back up a fair amount. Good gravy. While remaining more constrained than it has been in most other ammo systems, the bulk of our work moving forward will now be to tune the special weapons themselves, allowing the limited uptime weapons to better function as a limited power spike. We'll be buffing several special weapons to be discussed below and shifting a few outliers down a bit. But we also wanted to make a quality of life change to the special ammo bricks themselves to make it a little easier to collect the brick that you created. Increase the lifetime of dropped ammo bricks in Crucible from 30 to 60 seconds. Alright, cool. I'm excited to see what changes, because I know they used to not be used at all, like before the changes that they were making. But now they're getting a little bit back to where they used to be, where they were kind of necessary to get kills. But let's see what these changes are, and maybe it'll shake things up. Weapon archetypes. Sidearms. While semi-auto sidearms are very strong in the hands of a controller players, on mouse and keyboard they can struggle due to the barrel moving upwards and covering the target for an extended duration. We've done some custom tuning to a handful of sidearms to experiment with a less obtrusive recoil animation, and we'll be rolling it out gradually to help provide more options for sidearm gameplay on mouse and keyboard outside of just the heavy bursts. General. Altered the firing animation for some long-barreled sidearms to hide the reticle for a reduced duration. Heliocentric, Faustus Decline, Compact Defender, and a handful of other sidearms with silencers / extended barrels as part of their physical model. Alright, cool. I definitely think we're going to see a surge in sidearms because they're really good, especially in that like submachine gun range and a little bit further too. So they're pretty strong, and if you know how to use them, they freaking melt, and it's so annoying. Submachine guns, inverse to the issue with sidearms we mentioned above, we are seeing many controller players struggle to use SMGs outside of a very close range due to difficulty maintaining accuracy throughout the engagement. We have also been slowly increasing the range SMGs can operate in to give them some breathing room versus sidearms and spread shot hand cannons, and we'll be continuing that process with the popular lightweight sub family. All right. Yeah, I definitely remember when I was a controller player on console, I never touched SMGs, period, just because I could not control the recoil or anything. So I just gave up on submachine guns. And then I went to PC and was like, wow, these things are freaking laser beams. Why have I never been using these? But that's good that they're just now finally taking matters in their own hands and changing that. General, increased stability by 10% on controller. Lightweight, increased ADS damage fall-off scalar from 1.4 to 1.45. Alright. Pulse rifles. Rapid-fire pulse rifles are lagging the other more popular pulse rifle subfamilies in terms of both PvP and PvE effectiveness. So we have increased their base damage slightly to grant them easier access to both a more forgiving base time to kill and time to kill shifts with smaller damage boosts. Rapid fires. Increased damage, base damage from 15 to 15.5. Increased crit damage from 27.75 to 27.9. All right, rapid fires. Looks like they're going to be a little bit more viable. And I think these damage numbers are, I would say they look small, but they're definitely going to be really big game changers, especially for rapid fires. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Because pulse rifles are also friggin' strong right now. Like friggin' last Thursday, consistently getting shredded by that thing, and I hate it. I hate it. That's fine. It is what it is. Bows needed just a little bit of help in PvE and PvP, so we have rescaled their draw time curves to be slightly faster and more forgiving across the board. Lightweight bows will retain their same minimum draw time, but their base value and the value when increased by a perk have been reduced. Combat bows have had their draw times drop slightly across the entire curve. Recurve bows. Rescale draw time to be slightly faster at base and less punishing if increased. Base draw time 580 to 567. High tension string draw time 620 to 600. Compound bows. Rescale draw time to be slightly faster at base and higher stat values and less punishing if increased. Base draw time 684 to 667. High tension string draw time 720 to 700. Elastic string draw time 612 to 600. All right. Looks good to me. I haven't used a bow since Forsaken. I'm just not a big bow fan. I used to be, but I don't know. They're not really my style of gameplay. I'm not very good with them either. So that probably helps why I don't like them. Here explains it. Fusion rifles. With the increased special ammo gains in the Crucible, fusion rifles have been singled out by the community as being problematic with higher uptime. Rescaling the charge times will provide a better balance between the subfamilies, and the reduction to DPS from the slightly slower charge times is more than offset by the increase to PvE damage for the adaptive, precision, and high impact frames. In addition, this makes it less punishing to increase your charge time and less beneficial to reduce it, which will help to provide better variety in terms of perk selection among fusion rifles. Rescaled fusion rifle charge times, rapid fires 500 to 533, adaptives and aggressive 660 to 667, precision 780 to 800, high impacts 960 to 967, precisions, adaptives, aggressives, increased PvE bonus damage scalar from 2.5 to 6.7%. That's a pretty big number. High impacts increased PvE bonus damage scalar from 6.7 to 15%. Wow. That's like double damage scalar percentage. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I might have to start taking fusion rifles into PvE. Shotguns, while prevalent in Crucible, have almost all their usage focused on the precision pellet frame and have fallen behind other options in PvE. We have buffed all pellet shotgun frames damage in PvE by varying degrees, and we have also buffed the damage against players for the aggressive and lightweight frame shotguns. Rapid Fires added a 2.5% PvE bonus damage scalar, increased ammo per brick in PvE from 3 to 4 base and 6 to 8 enhanced. Lightweight increased damage per bullet from 22 to 23, increased PvE bonus damage from 12.5% to 15%. Precision Pellets increased PvE bonus damage from 12.5% to 15%. Aggressives increased damage per pellet from 26.7 to 28, increased PvE bonus damage from 12.5 to 20%. All right, good changes. I think shotguns in PvE could look a little more viable. I definitely bring a shotgun into PvE, just because that's what I have on, and it's got chill clip and things like that, so it's nice. And especially with the changes up top to how frozen targets get bonus damage against them. So we'll have to see how that works out. Slug shotguns. Pinpoint slug shotguns, like rapid fire fusion rifles, have become a bit too effective in higher skill Crucible lobbies, in large part due to their forgiving damage profile and substantial aim assist cones. As such, we have reduced their aim assist cone slightly and dropped their base damage versus players to make sure they retain the same lethal kill ranges they currently have with critical hits. We have increased their ADS damage fall-off range by a small amount. We also took this opportunity to correct a bug where Assault Mag increased the RPM of rapid-fire slug shotguns by an enormous amount. I was wondering why my rapid-fire slug was firing very fast all of a sudden. So that explains it. But we kept it a little spicier than normal at plus 20 RPM and buffed their PvE damage bonus a bit too. We've also further buffed heavy burst slug range to better differentiate them from other slug shotgun subfamilies. All right, let's see. General reduced aim assist cone size by 1% at the low end of the stat and 3% at the high end of the stat. Corrected the RPM displays in-game to be more accurate. This does not affect gameplay. It is purely visual. Rapid-fire slugs increased PvE bonus damage from 8.3 to 11%, fixed an issue where Assault Mag would increase RPM by 50. Pinpoint slugs decreased damage against players by 6%, increased ADS damage fall-off scalar from 1.2 to 1.25. Heavy burst slugs increased ADS damage fall-off scalar from 1.2 to 1.3, increased ammo per brick in PvE from 3 to 6 base and 6 to 12 enhanced. All right, cool. Snipers. Snipers have seen their effectiveness increase since we started granting them 2 shots from dropping bricks in PvE, but the amount of flinch they take from other players still feels too jarring. We have further reduced the flinch they take from other players, and while this is still more flinch than they took before we made the original change, we believe this will strike more of a balance between allowing players to counter a hard scope sniper and not making your weapon feel like it is being kicked when you take damage. Reduce flinch received from players by 40%. So yeah, snipers are coming back. I'm not great with snipers, but I'm probably going to start using a sniper now in PvP. We'll have to see. All right, rocket pulse rifles. Cool, this is a big change. Debuting with Edge of Fate, this new weapon type has become near ubiquitous with the kinetic slot. In reviewing our data, players feel almost pressured to run this weapon to fit the meta due to its ammo uptime, strong damage profile, and ease of use. With Mint Retrograde being in the kinetic slot around 45% of the time, we feel this is a bit unhealthy and too dominant. Therefore, we're going to let it keep its power on the battlefield but rein in the ammo economy by reducing reserves and the amount of ammo acquired per enhanced brick slightly. With buffs to other weapon types like shotguns, changes to a suite of exotics, and new weapons to chase with novel gameplay in Renegades, we feel this makes for a more diverse selection of loadouts and power fantasies. For players who who really favor Mint Retrograde or want to try their hand with a new Rocket Pulse in Renegades. Oh, hear that? A new Rocket Pulse in Renegades. Build craft options are expanded slightly for ammo generation, with scouts returning and more assist play contributing, meaning ammo uptime can be solved for. We don't make this change lightly, and we'll be keeping a close eye on reception as folks analyze as folks analyze the overall meta shakeup and theorycraft what builds they want to construct. Reduce the base reserve ammo for rocket pulse rifles from 18 to 14. Reduced enhanced ammo per brick in PvE, as mentioned in the ammo section, from 6 to 5 enhanced. All right. I think this is a good change. I like that they're keeping their power, but just reducing the ammo economy so you don't have it as much to rely on. I think that's a good change. Swords with slashing behind us. That was so fun. What a great event. Unplanned event, but a fun event. We took a look at some underlying weirdness that has persisted in swords since their inception way back in the Taken King. Wow. It's been that long. I thought they were... Did they really just show up in the Taken King? Interesting. Well, that's around when I started playing, so I just thought they were in the game the whole time. Now swords, when empty, should perform more like swinging an empty hilt than swinging your fist. Okay. Reduced empty sword swing damage. Empty sword swings are no longer scaled by melee buffs. Fixed an issue where Ascension was activating sword perks. Oh. Well, that's good. I didn't even know that this was an issue, that Ascension was activating sword perks. Then again, I don't use Ascension. I haven't been on Arc in a bit of a minute, just because survivability is kind of meh. At least with the builds that I have. I haven't really messed around with it, but I've been using Solar, because I just barely got a heal clip incandescent roll, so on Mida mini tool or multi-tool, whichever one it is. I think it's mini tool, but yeah, that's what I've been using. All right, time for the big boys, the exotics. Sorry, I'm a little sick, and my throat is killing me, so bear with me. Ace of Spades. Ace has long been potent in the Crucible, but has been overshadowed by many things in PvE in today's Destiny. We've made some buffs to Memento Mori and Ace's own version of Firefly to help it compete against the likes of Sunshot and its kin. It's what Cade would have wanted. Agreed. Cade's weapon, Ace of Spades, is really good. I do wish it was a little more potent in PvE. Increased extra PvE damage bonus of Memento Mori from 18% to 30%. Ace of Spades Firefly increased maximum damage in PvE from 65 to 100. Increased minimum damage in PvE from 0 to 20. Increased area effect size from 6 meters to 7.5 meters. Increased damage fall off start from 30% of area of effect size to 50%. Will keep full damage for more distance. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It definitely has a place. It's got a place in PvE now, which is cool. Alright. Hawkmoon. Hawkmoon promises big rewards for perfect accuracy, but this has not felt very worthwhile in PvE. Specifically, we've added a damage bonus gained per stack of paracausal charge to further reward pacing your shots and remaining accurate even in PvE. This also allows you to go for final blows instead of precision hits if you already have high stacks later in the mag. Now gets a PvE damage bonus per stack of paracausal charge, maxes out at 70% at times 8 paracausal charge. Does not include the final paracausal shot. Alright. I think that's good. I definitely think that now that it has like a stacking damage bonus, I think that's going to be really good. Osteostriga, my baby. Or at least used to be my baby. Never did anything else other than Osteostriga since it came out for a long time. My headphones just beeped for some reason. We are having the Osteostriga Poison Burst cooldown and seeing where this lands. This is a weapon that can dominate the PvE meta, especially in conjunction with necrotic grips, so we're being a bit cautious here. But we also don't want to leave longtime fans of this weapon feeling like it's been gutted. Reduce the cooldown of the poison burst on Osteostriga. Final blow from 4 seconds to 2. I might just have to go back to my baby. My baby might be coming back out of the vault. That's great. Great news. Suros Regime. Suros Regime is a solid, versatile workhorse weapon with a storied history. In today's sandbox, however, it struggles to compete outside its niche PvP following. We've updated it to fit a role within weapon-centric builds and given it a bit of QOL on its mode swap. Can now be special reloaded at will to swap between spinning up and dual speed receiver behaviors. Oh, nice. Added a new hipfire reticle element that corresponds with each firing mode. Grants bonus special ammo progress with spun up kills while using spinning up. Grants bonus heavy ammo progress on dual speed receiver kills while ADS. Oh, I like that it dips both into special and heavy ammo. I definitely think that's going to help it in PvE, especially if you want a little bit more control over what ammo type you're farming for. So I think this is a great change for Suros Regime. Revision 0. We thought Revision 0 could use a little more spice, and adding some of the newer kinetic-aligned effects seemed like a perfect tie-in. Hunter's Trace rounds now create a small damaging shockwave and exhausts targets on impact. Okay. Very nice. Cool, I'm excited to see where Revision 0 sits in PvE. Touch of Malice. Touch of Malice can be a strong weapon, but the healing part of the intrinsic perk, which is supposed to help offset the self-damage, was too niche and hard to activate. We've made the healing more effective and easier to trigger in PvE, and you will also heal every time you use special reload to activate the charged with Blight perk. Increased the amount of healing provided by the intrinsic perk, reduced the number of kills needed to trigger the healing in PvE, and activating charged with Blight will now fire the healing impulse. Cool. I know Touch of Malice can be really friggin' strong. I hope this change brings it a little bit. I don't even know if I have Touch of Malice, to be honest. I need to play that raid more. It's such a good raid, too. But I don't know. Collective Obligation. In the right build, Collective Obligation is potent, but asks quite a lot of the player. The current version requires you or your fire team to provide a source of volatile weaken and suppression for the weapon to leech from to get the most out of it, which isn't always practical or feasible in currently viable builds or available artifact perks. We've relaxed that requirement somewhat by adding a very slow rate of leeching debuffs on any damage dealt with the weapon. This can open this up for two more prismatic or non-void builds and relaxes some of the need to deploy every debuff yourself on void-centric builds. Added a very slow rate of leeching effects of unaffected targets, gives each effect in order of effectiveness with around a full mag of hits per debuff. Volatile, then weaken, then suppression. Also charges the leech mode at the same rate. Alright, cool. I like that change. Collective Obligation was such a cool idea. I hope that it comes back with this buff, because especially for hunters getting a void specific exotic, I definitely think void builds could come back for hunter specifically. Symmetry. Symmetry is an interesting weapon, but it feels like it's not quite worth the effort of its loop. With the introduction and popularization of Bolt Charge, particularly with Storm's Keep, this seemed a solid addition to the weapon, especially adding a new way to spend Bolt Charge via the weapon itself. Now builds Bolt Charge with 1 stack of Dynamic Charge in Alt Fire mode, grants more stacks at 10 times Dynamic Charge. Can now spend Bolt Charge with 1 stack of Dynamic Charge in Alt Fire mode, increased base reload stat by 20. Alright. That's pretty sick. I definitely think Symmetry needed a buff, and now that it taps into Bolt Charge, I think it has a potential to be really good. Still Hunt. A golden gun inspired sniper rifle exotic that requires precision hits really ought to be one of the best damage options for hunters. Let's fix that. Buff Still Hunt's golden gun damage while using Celestial Nighthawk by 40%, allowed snipers meditation to buff Still Hunt's golden gun shots. So we back. Golden gun Still Hunt combo is back. Well, looks like we know what hunters are using for the next forever, I guess. Dang. Witherhoard. Witherhoard has been feeling a bit lackluster since the nerf to auto-loading holster, but prior to the nerfs, it was not problematic. Plus, area denial grenade launchers can cover more of the battlefield a bit more easily. Rather than simply reverting that nerf, we thought we'd break the bank and let it shine as an iconic swap-focused weapon. Reduced silent alarm auto-load time from 3.5 seconds to 2. Alright. I think this is a really good change, and it's definitely going to be used a lot more than the area denial grenade launchers. So I think Witherhoard is finally getting back to where it should be as an exotic area denial grenade launcher. So that's cool. Duality is a the best of both worlds style exotic, but we still think it could be just a little better in terms of its hipfire effectiveness. Reduced hipfire spread by 6%. Alright, cool. I don't think I've ever used Duality for anything. The Chaperone. The Chaperone, like other slug shotguns, has become something of a menace in high-skill PvP lobbies. With its faster rate of fire, high damage, and generous aim assist, there weren't many downsides to using it compared to other special weapons. Inversely, despite several buffs, it continues to struggle in PvE. Changing it to use the rapid fire frame damage and rate of fire profiles will be a small nerf to ease the use in PvP, but a larger buff in PvE, bringing it more in line with other options. Change Chaperone to use the rapid fire slug frame damage and rate of fire profile. Alright, I think that's a good change. I haven't used the Chaperone since a long time ago, back when I was still on console. So maybe this is a good change. Good change. Ruinous Effigy. Ruinous Effigy has seen niche usage over time, but could still use a bit of attention. We've updated its catalyst to grant a damage bonus to the weapon after any final blow or damage to a mini-boss or higher target to help the weapon loop into its next orb or burn down priority targets. Catalyst now grants a 30%, 15% PvP damage buff to the trace rifle when killing anything with the transmutation orb or damaging mini-boss's boss champion with a transmutation orb. Alright, cool. Izanagi's Burden. Big boy. With the character stat rework and weapons-focused builds now being more of a supported playstyle, we've re-enabled the special reload on Izanagi's Burden to be able to benefit from the reload speed stat and similar effects. Get those Izzy swap builds back out of the vault, baby. Special reload once again scales with reload speed stat. Great. So now hunters can either choose between Golden Gun Sniper or the classic Izanagi swap builds. Great. Tessellation. Alright, this fusion rifle offers a variety of strong subclass synergy options, but can feel sluggish to use due to the special reload. While we wanted to maintain the longer special reload time due to the power of the shot, we've opted to reduce the friction of it in other ways, while offering additional benefits, on top of its existing ones, to further encourage use with Transcendence. Alright. Property undecidable? Sure. Final blows now also grant 2.5% light and dark Transcendence energy, and grant bonus time to Transcendence while active. Fixed an issue where Transcendence grenade chunk energy gains were not scaling based on the grenade stat. Property irreducible. While Transcendence is active. Special reload shots now deal 25% more damage when combined with the Transcendence damage buff. Special reloading now reloads the mag from reserves, and you can now special reload while you have 0 ammunition in the mag. Very good change. Catalyst increased applied scorch stacks from 15 plus 5 to 70 plus 10, and slow stacks from 30 to 80. Subclass keyword application is now near immediate, though it still does not apply before the primary explosion. Miscellaneous updated the timing of the reload for Tessellation and Yotun so that ammo is added to the mag slightly sooner, properly lining up with the animation. Okay, so Yotun's getting a little slight buff here for those Yotun enjoyers. I might just whip it out in PvP just because. Deathbringer. Deathbringer is potent and chaotic to wield, sometimes a bit more than it's worth the effort. We've narrowed the spread on the secondary projectiles to make it a bit more predictable to hit targets directly under where you chose to deploy the clusters. Reduce the spread of the secondary cluster munitions after they are created. Great change. Black Talon. Black Talon is strong in its own way, but struggles to keep up in today's build crafting world. We've made a few changes in this pass, allowing it to fit better in void-oriented builds, while also carving away some of its extreme ammo hunger like we did with Worldline 0 and Heart Shadow in 9.0.0. Heavy attack now suppresses on hits. If target is already suppressed, it spreads to nearby targets. Catalyst on hit gives a 10% damage boost per void debuff on the target for 2 seconds. Reduced heavy attack cost to 3 ammo from 4. Added Duelist's Trance trait, increased max reserve ammo. Cool. I think Black Talon could be pretty good in void builds. We'll have to wait and see on how it stacks up with other builds. Deterministic Chaos. Deterministic Chaos has a good ammo economy and decent total damage, but it needs to be reloaded frequently and lacks a distinct gameplay fantasy next to Thunderlord. New effect, releasing the trigger after a hexadecimal projectile pulls 12 rounds into the magazine from reserves. Oh. Interesting. I'm going to just see what this looks like. We'll have to give it a try. Worldline 0. I love this sword. It used to be so good back when it was first out, and I remember doing all like the cool side quests in order to unlock it. I thought it was so cool and so fun. With the changes in the 9.0.0 patch, Worldline 0 faced a frustrating bug, causing the Tesseract attack to deal much less damage than intended. We've remedied that with the following, as well as giving it a little extra love to make it up for the missed damage during Season of Reclamation. Fixed an issue where Tesseract was only hitting 1 instance of damage instead of the usual 5. Increase the damage instances via Tesseract from 5 to 7, 40% damage increase. Reduce time between these instances from 0.66 seconds to 0.44 seconds. Fixed an issue where chaining Tesseract was inconsistent if the player had the Worldline 0 Catalyst equipped. Reduce the cost of chain Tesseract blinks from 20% sword energy to 10% per. Very nice. I'm excited to see what this does. Wolfsbane. Yeah. I've been using this a lot recently, so let's see what changes they're making. With Wolfsbane pulled through time and into our hands, we are largely happy with how people have reacted to it. But it shipped a little under where we wanted. While it should feel like a weapon that encourages you to reap from your foes, the juice at current doesn't feel worth the squeeze. Increased damage of light attacks by 8.5%, closer to Lament or aggressive swords. Increased nano assault duration from 10 seconds to 12 seconds, which makes the tornadoes feel a little more forgiving. Increased swarm NATO damage by 20%. It's already hitting strong, Bungie. It already hit strong. Okay, sure. Retuned axe handles. Increased damage resistance on each handle by 5%. Increased damage resistance linger time from 3 seconds to 5 seconds. Reduced internal cooldown on subroutine. Recursion's extra nanites from 5 seconds to 2 seconds. Adjusted damage increased when used on afflicted targets to ramp slightly quicker. Great changes. I am so glad that I just get to keep using it, because it hits like a truck. I definitely need to work on my build a little bit for survivability while using it, but other than that, it's great. Perks. Rangefinder. Ever since Zoom was decoupled from damage falloff, Rangefinder has no longer fully lived up to its name. We wanted to give it some help to hone it in as a range increasing perk. Now also provides plus 10 range while aiming down sights. So Rangefinder hand cannons, they back? They kind of back? Maybe. Rampage. Rampage is the original damage perk, but has fallen out of favor as more desirable perk options have been added. We want Rampage to remain a solid damage perk option that any player can pick up and find success with. And to achieve this, we've added some flexibility to the timer. Now loses only one stack of the damage buff when the timer expires. Yes, this includes Huckleberry. Well, that's a slight little buff to Huckleberry right there. That could be pretty good. Could be pretty good. Box breathing. Box breathing has fallen behind in PvE and mostly only sees use in PvP with scout rifles. Because it would buff the precision scaler of the weapon, different weapon types would see different damage increased values. We decided to retune how box breathing's damage buff is applied to simplify the setup, which in turn increases the value on most weapon types. Box breathing now provides a flat 40% buff to your next shot's precision damage for all existing weapon types and 30% for the new heavy ammo sniper. This works out to be a buff of around 10% for existing snipers and linear fusion rifles, and a small nerf for scout rifles. Great. That's a good buff right there for all of these guys. Shot swap. I don't think I've ever used shot swap in my life, so let's see this long change. Shot swap fails to provide enough of a benefit to feel worth choosing over other swap-focused perks. The swap charges could also feel clunky to read and manage. We wanted to address these concerns to help it compete with perks that have similar focus, while also maintaining a distinct use case for it. The swap benefits are now more potent. New values are 0.7 ready speed multiplier, 0.65 enhanced, previously 0.75, 0.70 enhanced. 0.7 stow speed multiplier, 0.65 enhanced, previously 0.90, 0.85 enhanced. You now only lose one charge on stow. Previously, you would lose one on stow and one on ready, effectively losing 2 every swap. As a result, the maximum number of charges that can be held has been reduced from 8 to 6. This is an effective increase, buffing 6 swaps at 6 charges instead of the previous 4 swaps at 8 charges. The HUD buff no longer appears while stowed. To maintain parity between each other, the Sturm Catalyst has received some minor tweaks. Now loses a charge on stow, previously would lose one on ready. This should have no negative impact on the number of swaps this will benefit. The HUD buff now only appears while Sturm or a Together Forever weapon is in hand. Cool. I am not a fan of swapping weapons. I don't really use bait and switch that much either. I probably should, because it's really good, but I like using my weapons how I want to use them. You know? Whatever. Sleight of hand. Sleight of hand also struggles to hold its own against other swap-focused perks. We've decided to give it some flexibility and allow the user to choose when they want to swap to the weapon. We also discovered an issue where the buff could potentially not activate despite getting a kill, so we fixed this. Increase the duration of the buff to 8.5 seconds, 9 enhanced, from 7 seconds, 7.5 enhanced. You no longer need to swap to the weapon within 5 seconds of getting a kill. Instead, the buff timer will activate upon your next swap to the weapon, regardless of how long ago your last kill was. Added a timer to the HUD buff. Fixed an issue where you could potentially lose newly gained stacks if you swapped off the weapon while the buff was still active. Great change. For those of you sleight of hand enjoyers, phenomenal change. Bray Legacy. When Bray Legacy was made for Vesper's Host, it was tuned particularly for the weapons it was on. At the time, these weapons all had dependable amounts of damage instances they might be able to cause on each trigger pull. With its expansion out to other weapons now, we've seen it dramatically overperform when paired with perks that break this expectation, so we're tuning it accordingly for just the outliers. Increase gains for rocket launchers from 10% per rocket to 17%. No longer activates from explosions caused by perks or from Galahorn micro missiles. Fair enough. Alright, Vice Stinger. Vice Stinger was newly added to shotguns and fusions in the Edge of Fate, but didn't work properly with them. We fixed this. Fixed an issue where Vice Stinger origin trait wasn't working on Vice... I can't say it the same! Fusion rifles or shotguns. Bewildering Burst. With the changes to Disoriented listed above, we wanted to bring this perk in line with other disorienting options. Disorient duration increased from 0.5 seconds to 1 second against players. Enhanced duration increased from 0.7 to 1.25. Great. Shield Disorient, Photo Inhibition, Disorienting Grenades, Concussion Grenades. Since Disorient is now a verb, we can apply it more broadly than we could before with various bespoke effects. Fixed an issue where these perks would not apply the Disorient effect to bosses. Alright, that's all we have to share today, but much more is coming. We have Dev Insight articles dropping every week before Renegade launches on December 2nd, along with trailers and our weekly TWIDs, so stay tuned to learn all about our next expansion. That was a long one. I understand why they didn't put it in the TWID now. But so far, like, really great changes. I'm glad that they're looking at everything as a whole, and I understand why they've been quiet for so long. They've been making a lot of changes. A lot of these are really good changes, and I'm excited to see how the weapons feel in Renegades. I think there's going to be a lot that are feeling really, really good, especially with exotics and specifically just like a bunch of other stuff. I'm excited to see how Disorient works, and Stasis now dealing a good amount of extra damage with different weapons and stuff. There's a lot of changes here. I'm excited to see what the new meta is like for Renegades and how this shakes things up. But if you did enjoy this video, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I really appreciate it. It lets me know that you're here watching and that you enjoy this content. Well, that's going to be it for this one. Stay tuned for tomorrow's TWID. I will be making a video and posting about that to see what news they have, as well as all of the future dev articles that are coming out over the next couple weeks. So thank you all for coming and watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye!